أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على الإمام الهدى والمتقين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Jazakumullah khairan for everyone who's joining in. Today we continue our discussions. This has been a series of conversations, what we're calling Convos with Experts, that we have been doing for the past few days. This is our fourth series of conversations. This has been a humble effort from my part, as well as my wife who's assisting in this, just to bring in certain people who are experts in their fields to discuss issues relevant to our times. It doesn't have a significant production value or anything of that sort. It just is where we want to focus on the content. So far, alhamdulillah, we've been trying to do almost like every couple of two episodes every week. And right now we want to speak about Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions in Surah Al-Baqarah about the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran hudan lin-nasi wa bayyinatin min al-huda wal-furqan, that it is in this month of Ramadan that Allah Azza wa Jalla has revealed the Quran, so that it could be so that it's a guidance and a furqan for humanity. Ramadan, alhamdulillah, we if Allah allows us to see Ramadan, inshallah, it may be within the next few days, within less than 2 weeks time period. And it's an unusual Ramadan. It is an unusual Ramadan because of the pandemic, because of what the world is going through, where we have a situation where we are basically in stay-at-home restrictions, or in quarantine, or in lockdown, complete lockdown, depending on which part of the planet you live in. Moreover, what we have seen in the past month, at least, that salah, regular congregational salah at the masajids have not been conducted. Jummah has been essentially canceled at the masajids in many parts of the world, of course, including the United States. And then there have been pictures that I think everybody has seen of the haram of Mecca and Medina, specifically of Mecca, where the tawaf is not taking place, or it is restricted in the main in the main center area. There are still some people are still able to do tawaf on the top floor, but in general, those are really eerie pictures, where you don't have the masses of people that would encircle the Kaaba and perform the tawaf. And these are things that, we, at least I would never have imagined, that we would live in a time where you would see the Kaaba essentially empty. It puts shivers. You get shivers when you look at these pictures, you look at these images in your body, because it reminds us of that Allah Azza wa Jal really doesn't need anybody. Allah Azza wa Jal is all supreme, all knowing, and we are nothing. And in that sense, to talk about some of these things, to talk about Ramadan and the spirituality that we have to preserve, because we will not be able to go to the masjid or attend Taraweeh. That could possibly be the case, and to talk about things that we want to busy ourselves with, our ibadat and connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today I have a esteemed guest. I have Ustadh Asim Kazi. Ustadh Asim Kazi has been a teacher of mine for several years. One of my oldest teachers, mashallah, and he is he's a alim who studied under scholars from Darul Uloom. He's mashallah is well versed in usul, in fiqh, in history. He's active in his local community in the Naperville area, and as well as different masajids where he gives regular sessions, regular lectures. He's a regular attendee and a lecturer at Masjid al-Huda. He gives a series on the Sira at the Lake in the Hills Masjid, and also another masjid in Addison. So his plate is pretty full, as well as he teaches at an Islamic school on the weekend. So mashallah, he's very, very active in the community. He lectures quite a bit. And apart from that, he's also a software engineer. That his day job. And mashallah, he has, I think you said 50 patents, right? Or so of, so he's a scientist in that sense, mashallah also. So he's well-rounded in everything. And, you know, I have immense respect for Asim Kazi. You know, over the years, he's taught me a lot. I've learned a lot from him, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum, Ustadh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah
khair for coming. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you allowing me to, you know, bring some questions to you so that our audience can get some understanding on our topic today. I appreciate all that you do for the community. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah Azza wa Jal reward you for everything that you do.
Wa iyyakum. Jazakallah khair for having me. And thanks for the introduction. Inshallah, we'll just dive into directly.
Sure, inshallah. If I could ask you to just kind of increase the volume on your mic just a little bit, that would be great.
Okay, I'm talking on the laptop directly. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now, alhamdulillah.
Okay.
So that's better.
Just trying to be. Okay.
All right. So, you know, the main thing I wanted to, there are a lot of things that we want to cover, and I wanted to cover these things as thoroughly as we can. And I wanted to get this question out of the way. You know, we live in a time where insan has done a lot of evil things, you know, from wars, from destruction, to killing the environment, to harming even animals and human beings. I mean, insan has, if we just open the news, we'll see that we literally live in turmoil, you know, from warfare to environmental harm to not even taking care of the animals, etc. Just today, for example, a few days ago, I was reading the news. It said that we're dumping millions of gallons worth of milk just to maintain the price. Where on the other side of the world, you know, people in Africa and other smaller countries, they're dying of hunger. You know, there was another news that came about that the regulations, the environmental regulations that are in place to protect the environment, to cut down emissions, that has been relaxed by the Trump administration. Famine continues in Yemen. The political turmoil in the Middle East, the genocide that's happening in Syria, the Muslims in Rohingya and in China, etc. So, you know, I can go through the list of all of these things that is going on. But now, you know, this is the actions of insan. Now you have a virus that comes in and the whole dunya is on basically shut down, right? The whole economy crashes. The people are questioning their mortality and all of that stuff. So it takes a virus to topple everything, you know. So the question becomes, and this is something I think we've addressed in the past episodes too, but I wanted to get your take on this also, is Allah punishing us?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's not necessarily a question that you're asking. Many of us actually, they think about it like this, and something in the background of the mind of every one of us is coming up like this, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishing. Even I was watching a small video, one of the Christian guys, he was in New York by Times Square, and he's screaming the top of the lung about that this is the punishment from God, and we still have time to go back to God and ask for repentance and things like that. And a similar kind of emotions and understandings we can kind of feel among the Muslim Ummah as well. And whenever I personally think of this kind of a situation we are in, or any kind of a hardship that we come across, We hear that like this is the punishment from God, even to a point that when a nation is invading another nation, or Muslims, many of the Muslims come up and say, oh, this is the result of our action. This is our action that is resulting into external powers and invading our countries, or stealing the resources and all those things, even though these are very well planned actions by the others. And we end up saying this. But I remember this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that says, and it's reported by Sahih Muslim, عجبا لأمر المؤمن إن أمره كله خير. That this is amazing. Rasulullah said, the situation of the believer is amazing. That everything is khair for him. وَلَيْسَ ذَاكَ لِأَحَدٍ and إِلَّا لِلْمُؤْمِنِ. And it is not like this for anybody except the believer. إِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ سَرَّاءُ شَكَرَ. And when he is going through some ease, he is thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَكَانَ خَيْرَ اللَّهُ. And this is good for him. وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّاءُ صَبَرَ. And when he is going through some hardship, he is patient. فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. And this is good for the believer. So either situation we are in, whether we're going through a hardship, no matter what kind of a hardship it is, it's a pandemic or it's a simple hardship as of a prick of a thorn, everything is a khair for a believer. But it is connected with something, which is that if it's a hardship, it has to be connected to the sabr. And sabr means that you are being patient, meaning that no matter what situation you are in, you are sticking with the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you are doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants in that situation. And if some goodness comes, we always thank to the well-deserving, the only deserving entity, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we thank him for the ease in our life that he has provided us. Now, when it comes to pandemic, like we are in, there is actually a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that kind of hints towards that. Even though it's talking about ta'un or a plague, but it is a similar situation we are in, and this is what scholars take it as. And the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually talks about that Aisha reports, and this hadith is also this is mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked about the plague, about the ta'un. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's response was, plague was a punishment which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to send on whom he wished. So he used to send plague as a punishment. But the hadith goes on, but Allah made it a blessing for the believers. So it has become a rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this even a pandemic that we are going through. But this is connected again to the very similar concept that talks about that because of the plague, the person is staying in his land, sabiran muhtasiban, meaning he is patient, meaning he continues to stick with the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's staying in his land because of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because of somebody has put the curfew on you, or somebody has put the social distancing as an obligation on you. No, rather, it is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the one who has commanded, and we are hoping the return from Allah. And the hadith actually continues on about that the ghost says that, and consider that nothing will fall on him except what Allah has ordained on him. And that says, but Allah will grant him a reward similar to that of mithlu ajri shaheed, that he will get the ajr of the shaheed. That doesn't say the person who dies, by the way, the hadith. Hadith is saying whatever Allah has written for the person, whether he survives or whether he loses a life in that situation, he will get the ajr of the shaheed. So that's what the hadith of Rasulullah. And another one talks about ta'awunu shahadatun likulli Muslim, and for every Muslim who dies in the situation of a plague, he is like a shaheed. So what could be a bigger reward than this? So we look at even that situation as the rahmah from Allah Azza wa Jal. So that's keep this in mind. Now, about the part about can this be a punishment or not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look, we don't have a messenger among us who can certify this. Well, this disease was a punishment and the other one was just a test for you. Look, we know every hardship is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it's a ta'un, it's a plague. So that we know that for sure. But Whether it's a punishment on the people or not, we don't have messengers among us who can we can say that there are different the different evidences that lead to that direction, but we can never be able to say with a surety. What we can say is this: okay, fine, whether it's a punishment or not, what am I supposed to do in this situation?
So let me hold you for a second there. So if you're saying that, look, if you want to know for certain that something is azab, right? Something is an azab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you have to have textual proof. You have to have a hadith or an ayah from the Quran to say that this is an azab. Mm-hmm. If you want to term it in those manners.
That is correct.
Yes. Okay.
See, the textual text, we have to have a nas from the Quran and the Sunnah that leads to the direction, one aspect of it, right? Yeah. But now, besides that, that textual text which is coming from the Quran and Sunnah, does it really apply on this reality or not? Does it exactly apply on the reality or not? We cannot say with surety about these things. So now, what we end up is like another hadith of Rasulullah that talks about a man came to Rasulullah asking, oh, when is the day of judgment? And we know that many people try to connect everything to this is a sign of day of judgment also. Right. Any earthquake happens, oh, this is a sign of a day of judgment. Any big disaster happens, we say this is a sign of judgment. And there are hadiths to support that. But we know that these are happening for past 1500 years. Mm-hmm. So now, what does that mean? So the response of Rasulullah to that man was also this: okay, what have you prepared for this? Mm-hmm. Instead of people this is a very fanciful thing to, now I know the prophecy has really happened. Well, whether it's happened or not, the question should always be, okay, what am I supposed to do now if I am in this situation, right? Yeah. So the Rasulullah said that, what have you prepared for this day of judgment that you were asking for? And his response was, Ya Rasulullah, I haven't prepared much, I haven't done much, but I love Allah and His Messenger. Mm. And the response of Rasulullah was that you will be with the one whom you love on the day of judgment. And that was one of the joyous things the Sahaba heard. Yeah. That's not the actions that you do. Yes, you have to do the actions correctly, because the love of Allah and His Messenger means actually that you undertake all your actions that pleases Allah and His Messenger. That's what the love means. Love is not just regurgitating this terminology, I love Allah, and I do go and disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all my actions, right? Mm-hmm. Today, people say, oh, I love Bernie Sanders. Do they really want to say that they want to be resurrected on the day of judgment with him? See, this is the way we should look at the things. We love Kobe Bryant, people will be saying, oh, do you want to be resurrected with him on the day of judgment? So we rather be the one who love Allah and His Messenger and act according to what Allah and His Messenger wants. So that's what it means by that. So now when it comes to this ta'oon, we should think of it, okay, what am I supposed to do in this situation? Am I doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from me? Am I ready to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these situations, right? Now, if it is iqab, what are the things that really turn my actions into an iqab or the punishment from Allah? We have to know that also then, right? If we are thinking of this in iqab, so we should not do those things. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِي لَتَأْمُرُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَلَا تَنْهَوُنَّ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that by one in whose hand is my soul, either you enjoin the good or forbid the evil and forbid the evil. أو لَيُوشِكَنَّ اللَّهُ أَن يَبْعَثَ عَلَيْكُمْ عِقَابًا مِنْ. That or Allah will descend His punishment on you. ثُمَّ تَدَعُونَهُ فَلَا يُسْتَجَابَ لَكُمْ. And then you will raise your hands towards Allah Azza wa Jal. You make the dua and Allah will not reply back to you. See, so now if that's the case, that we are in that situation, we think of it, okay, are we enjoining the good and forbidding the evil or not? If not, I better be involved in those actions then. Okay.
Jazakallah khair. Let me, I'm just going to pause here for a second just to let our audience know that we're on Facebook Live. I'm on Facebook Live on my page, my Facebook personal page. So inshallah, whoever's watching on our page, on my page, just make sure you make your comments or your questions there, and inshallah, I'll get to them as we proceed in this discussion. Let me get this one other point out of the way before we get into what we need to do and the idea of Ramadan. When we talk about punishment from God, or so on and so forth. Typically, when we look at the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions different stories, whether it was Surah Al-Fil, whether it is the mosquito and the Nimrud, etc. And uh, these were uh, um, birds or mosquitoes or animals, whatever were different stories. They were part of the army of God, right? And this is an idea that's also discussed, is that there is an army of God that comes to destroy nations. How do we look at this virus from that textual perspective?
Look, as I mentioned,
Yeah.
about again, if it is really a punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not, we cannot say anything with surety that it is really something like this or not. It can be, but the thing is, as a Muslim, we look at from our side, right? So from the textual perspective, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has already mentioned to us that when it comes to the plague, even though it was used as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used it as a punishment. Now, for a believer, it is a rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So we look at from that angle. It can be a punishment, and it can be a punishment even for a believer if he is not abiding by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Meaning that, as we said, if he is not doing this job of enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Look, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connects a hukum with a punishment, okay, that means that action is, if it needs to be done, if it was part of awamir, meaning commands from Allah to be undertaken, then it is an obligation. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is prohibiting certain things, and it is connected to the hellfire or punishment, or punishment in this dunya even, then it means that action is a haram. So our job should be, go back and, okay, can I look into my life individually as an ummah? Are we doing this job that Allah Azza wa Jal has actually assigned to us as an ummah? We were actually given the title of the best nation. Yeah, kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. You are the best nation raised for mankind. But look at that interesting thing. Even that part of being the best nation is connected to enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Yeah, kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. That you enjoin the good. This is a conditional statement that you are the best nation, that you are doing your job of enjoining the good, forbidding the evil, and believing in Allah Azza wa Jal. So now, taking back to the things that you mentioned in the introduction, right? That the things that you have said, what are happening in the world today, whether on the Muslims or the non-Muslims, whether you talk about wasting of the milk or the dairy products or vegetables and fruits and even meat, and all those things have been destroyed to keep the market prices up. At the stake of what? So you can get more benefit or more profit, while even in the United States, there is about 30-40 million people who are below poverty line. Or in the world today, as one of the UN reports talk about, 25,000 people die daily out of hunger. 25,000 people. It's a huge number. Think about it. So if you look from that angle, yes, there Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, who does not need a reason, have many reasons that we have provided to him to descend his adab on the mankind. So now we have to take the stance as an ummah to take the people out of this misery. That's our job now. Okay.
So to connect that point further, I mean, so Ramadan is upon us, right? And this is a unique Ramadan. In the 30 plus years that I've been alive, and probably however old you are and you've been alive, we've never seen something like this, right? Ramadan is usually a festive month. We like it. There's a certain spirituality that is connected to Ramadan. We love the family gatherings, the iftars, the community communities get together, you go to the masajid, Taraweeh, Tahajjud, etc. Alhamdulillah, Ramadan is welcomed in the hearts of a lot of the Muslims. And it's a moment that we wait for throughout the year. So how do we as Muslims now look at this unique Ramadan? What perspective should I have going into Ramadan? And I wanted to actually discuss this topic, a few days before Ramadan, so that we, inculcate this sort of a mentality, so that we are actually prepared coming into Ramadan from a correct perspective.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. It's a good question, and as I think this is again another very similar question that has been popping up in everybody's mind. And as a matter of fact, when this whole lockdown situation was started and the masajid decided to close down or shut down, this is the very first thing people start talking about.
Exactly. Yes.
That, okay, what's going to happen to my Ramadan? What's going to happen to Salat Taraweeh that we go and pray with? Depends on which area you are in. Some cases you are praying with thousands of people, even in Chicagoland.
Right. Yeah.
And there is a kind of a feeling that you get of meeting people that you have not met throughout the year probably, and you start seeing them in the masjid, alhamdulillah. So now, before I just go into the impact of it, I think it's good to revisit first to understand what is really Ramadan. And what do we expect from Ramadan in general, and see how we can get the very same benefits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended from us to gain out of Ramadan. Okay? When it comes to Ramadan, and the ayah that you recited in the beginning of the introduction, that Allah Azza wa Jal says in Surah Baqarah that أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم. That the ayah Allah Azza wa Jal here is talking about is, first of all, He's telling us something, one of the blessings of the Ramadan. This is the month Allah Azza wa Jal revealed the Quran. Okay, Al-Furqan is another name of the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, and this Al-Furqan is the guidance for the mankind, and it explains from this guidance and the criterion means the one standard that tells falsehood, distinguishes falsehood from the truth, and draws the line between what is halal, what is haram, what is legal, what is illegal, whatever term we want to use it. But that's what Al-Furqan does, and this is what Quran does. Allah Azza wa Jal says, so now the very same month, which is the blessing of that, is we have revealed this final revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the final communication from the creator of the heavens and the earth. That book, that Al-Furqan, is the one was revealed in the month of Ramadan, and now Allah is saying, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمْ وَشَارَ فَلْيُصُمْ, meaning whosoever witnesses this month, he must fast. Okay. Now I'm not gonna go into the fiqh of the Ramadan here or the fasting here. Inshallah, we'll be discussing on a different perspective of how do we look at it. Now, similarly, Allah Azza wa Jal in the very same Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the fasting. What is fasting actually? And it is prescribed to you. What should we be gaining out of it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, kutiba alaykum siyam kama kutiba ala alladina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O you who believe, we have prescribed, it has been prescribed on you, the fasting has been prescribed on you the way it was prescribed to the previous people. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us the reason behind the this obligation. The purpose of that is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so you will gain the righteousness, the fear of righteousness, the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the month of Ramadan and the fasting is this is one of the actions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept it to himself, that many other actions that you do, but this deed, the Ramadan, the fasting, is only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a very personal thing. Nobody can tell that a person is fasting or not, right? Somebody's because fasting is you stay away from the food, drinking, and jama'ah during the daytime. This is the basic definition of the fasting, and nobody would know which person is fasting, which one is not. This is up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only Allah is the one who knows, and Allah has kept the ajr for this to himself as well. Meaning that the hadith discusses the concept of that one of the hadith in mentioned by Abu Dawood, and similar hadith is mentioned by Sahih Muslim, Imam Muslim as well, that talks about that every action that Bani Adam does, he can get the hasanat from 10 to 700 or more. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it comes to the fasting is for me. That it is for me, and I am the one who gives reward. So it can be multiple folds that we can think of. Now, when we are in this pandemic, does this really change any of these things when it comes to fasting itself? Obviously, that really does not change much as far as the fasting goes. Fasting can go on the same way, yeah. But obviously, it is taking some of the things away from us that we enjoy. But we have to go back and see, was that the fasting done in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the one we have done today? Like, it has become a party time for some people. Yeah, it has become party time. Or even going to Taraweeh become like a more of a, I'm not saying that this is what everybody is doing, but it has become more of a gathering place also. Look, the purpose of all these ibadat that Allah Azza wa Jal has put on us is to gain the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? And if we talk about that from this pandemic perspective, I actually look at as the rahmah again, the way the hadith says, even from the month of Ramadan perspective. Now we can really focus more and more on our ibadat. We have been secluded automatically. We are sitting in i'tikaf by default now. People have to go on the i'tikaf to the masjid for 10 days. We have been in the i'tikaf for past month already. And Allah knows the best how long we are going to be in the i'tikaf now. But this seclusion should be actually utilized as much as we can, because think of ourselves, how many of us postpone many of the things Allah Azza wa Jal has prescribed. I'm not even talking about the recommended actions, the ones which are obligatory on us. We continue to push it on the side, right? Like talabul ilm farida ala kulli Muslim, right?
Seeking knowledge
seeking knowledge is an obligation,
right,
for all the Muslims. And how many of us continuously postpone it until become very old, probably like me? Then we're gonna start learning about deen. Yeah, this is not the way we are expected to do the things. So this seclusion time or pandemic we are in, that is actually should be really the best way you can think of, that death is in our face. Everybody is reminding us of death. Even the kuffar are reminding us of death all the time now. Yeah? So that should be a real question for us. Okay, what am I getting out of this? The threat that I have on me all the time, and that should be not only for pandemic, right? Whether it's coronavirus or not. As a Muslim, we understand we will all die, and this reality nobody can deny, Muslim or non-Muslim, that we are all going to die.
Let me pause you there for a second. Let me get a question. I think this is from Complete Life 8. It says, how can we have a normal Ramadan this year? No Makkah or Medina prayers, no community gatherings, no Taraweeh. We kind of just addressed that question. We were just addressing that question. This is a question from Complete Life. Let me bring in this one other aspect. Mashallah, what you're saying is that, look, this Ramadan is of immense benefit for us, because we have to look at it as another rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he's making sure that now all these other distractions are not there, and you're focusing on your ibadat, you're focusing on pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're focusing on doing the halal and the haram and staying away from the haram. You're focusing on reconnecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, but the question also comes in, okay, what do we do about Taraweeh then? What do we do about the Jummah Salah, right? Because these were the two times, at least. The third one would be the Tahajjud Salah later on in the last 10 days. But Taraweeh and Jummah Salah, it's a big question, at least in my mind. I mean, what am I going to do for Jummah Salah? Ramadan's Jummah Salah is very important, and the ajr is immense. And
Yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting question. And as I was saying about the previous question that was asked about the house of Ramadan,
yeah.
I'll continue with one of the hadith that I want to end the last part, which is important to remember. Look, when we talk about the fasting, right, and when we talk about Taraweeh and all those things, this is only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing else. You know? But sometimes we actually could question our own actions, right? That, well, am I doing this? Even, for example, I'm talking to you today, not right now. Is it only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or is it some stunt we are doing to get some acceptance from the people or something, right? This is an important thing. The same thing goes for any of the ibadah. There's a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam discusses this issue. And it's a very important thing to remember. A man came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he says, what do you think of a man who fights seeking the reward and fame, right? And the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam response was, La shay'a lahu. There's nothing for him. The one who is looking for something else, in that case, and he's فَعَادَهَا ثَلَاثَ مَرَّاتٍ, and he repeated it 3 times. يقول له رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا شيء لا شيء. He asked question, Rasulullah replied, there's nothing for him. And then he said, Rasulullah said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَقْبَلُ مِنَ الْعَمَلِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept an action. إِلَّا مَا كَانَ لَهُ خَالِصًا وَابْتُغِيَ بِهِ وَجْهُ. Except if the action is done only to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, so now this is what I meant. Now we are in a situation, whatsoever we want to do for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have been secluded by default. This is why the ibadah of seclusion is very important. The things that you do of your own, nobody is watching you, you're the only one. Okay? That purifies your intentions. That you're doing only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the only one who is watching you, nobody else. Same thing goes for charity, right? Of course, there's a way of charity that can be done when you're doing the charity, whether you're doing openly or in a way in a secrecy. But of course, the best one is you do it in a way that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand, or left hand doesn't know what the right hand is given. Now, about the charity, it goes back things like, unfortunately today, it is becoming more and more of a norm that we have to have a photo shot with every charity. And the thing that really makes me angry about that part is the photo shot goes to the extent of you are degrading or disgracing the one who is receiving the charity. And we really have to be watchful for that. Even though this is not the question, I really want to put this out. So we make sure our actions are done only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing else. About the Taraweeh and the Salatul Jum'ah, and the masajids are closed. Look, well, I think if we go back and revisit what happened, how did the Salatul Taraweeh came in or became a prayer nafila for the Ummah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was actually one of the nights he was praying, and some of the people this is after Salatul Isha, of course, and people saw Rasulullah is praying in over there. They start praying behind him. So that first day there were a couple of people showed up. Second day there were more people. Then a huge number of people showed up. At that time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, hadith says 3rd or 4th time, he did not come out. Okay, and he did not come out. So Rasulullah was asked about that, whether did he fall asleep or what? He did not come out. So Rasulullah said, you continue doing what I saw you doing till I was afraid that this Taraweeh prayer might be enjoined on you, meaning prescribed, become an obligation. And if it would become an obligation to you, you would not continue performing it. Therefore, O people, perform your prayers at your homes, for the best prayer of the person is what is performed at his home, except the Salatul Maktuba. Salatul Maktuba means the one which is the prescribed for the
congregational. Yeah.
So it is actually a recommendation is to pray Salatul Taraweeh at home. Okay. Not only that, Salatul Taraweeh actually is another form of Salatul Tahajjud. Okay, this is a Tahajjud or Qiyamul Layl. It's no different than that. It's a Qiyamul Layl that anybody can do. Now, when you're doing at home, you can either do.
I can pause you a little bit. You kind of shrunk a little.
Oh, sorry. It's just my laptop. It moves back and forth.
All right, exactly.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Okay, so the way it works is that Sunnah prayer, the Salatul Taraweeh is a nafila. Now, it is it is actually recommended to be done at home. So as far as the Taraweeh goes, it's supposed to be done at home. Now, the question comes in is, well, I am not a Hafiz al-Quran. How am I supposed to hold the Salatul Taraweeh at home? This is some of the questions that do come to the mind. First of all, it is not the Salah itself is not an obligation, and to finish the Quran in it is not an obligation. It is not an obligation that you have to finish the Quran for Salatul Taraweeh or the Qiyamul Layl. Yes, it is something good to finish, visit the Quran at least once in the month of Ramadan. And it can be done at home. One, you can lead by your own family, or each and every individual can do of their own. Now, there is ikhtilaf among the scholars regarding the issue of, for example, I want to really read the Quran, but I have not memorized the whole Quran. What should I do now? So there is ikhtilaf. Some of the scholars, they actually, Imam Abu Hanifa is the one who actually said it invalidates the salah if you are reading the Quran from the Mus'haf in the salah. Okay. While the others, they agree, even Imam Muhammad and Abu Yusuf, the Sahibain, or the companions of Abu Hanifa, Allah, they actually agreed that it is okay to do it, especially for the one who does not know.
So you mean by holding the Mus'haf, the book in your hands,
or the phone that you are carrying, or
right, without hold on, don't give people ideas, man. I mean, phone, then your text messages are coming in, all that stuff.
All of an airplane mode.
Inshallah. But the other thing that I want to just add is that you can even just read the surahs you memorize. It's not like you have to read Surah Al-Baqarah. You can read whatever you have memorized, and you can repeat those surahs. And increase your sajda time a little bit more, your ruku time a bit more, recite the ayat or the surah slowly, and after every salah, just maybe read the translation, the tafsir, etc. Okay, so let me before we because we got a lot of other things to discuss, I wanted to just get the second part of the question that I asked, which is about the Jummah salah. What do we do? How do we tackle this issue now?
So again,
now, provided that, just for the audience, provided that maybe inshallah the restrictions are lifted, but just in case they're not, then we have to address this question.
So the reason I brought up the issue of the Mus'haf is actually was leading to the Salat al-Jum'ah as well. It's the same thing from the perspective of there is an ikhtilaf over here, even for holding the Salat al-Jum'ah at home, okay, or you're doing in the masjid. And ikhtilaf actually goes to an extent of if you go to the especially
ikhtilaf is a difference of opinion.
Difference of opinion.
Just for the audience.
Yes. Especially if you go back to the opinions of Ahnaf, meaning the one who follow the Hanafi thought, you will find actually they even go to an extent of Salat al-Jum'ah is not valid. There was a previous opinions about this. Not valid if there is either the Amir al-Mu'mineen is the one who's leading the salah, or he has appointed somebody to lead the salah. And the fuqaha, they discuss this idea like this.
So just clarify that statement. You're saying that one of the Hanafi opinions is that Jummah salah is not valid if it is not the Khalifa or the Amir al-Mu'mineen or the ruler of that time, of that locality, leading the salah.
Either him leading the salah or
his appointed
to lead the salah. Because I mean the land was so extensive that you cannot just have one jama'ah for them, right? So that's one aspect of it, to remember that. Now about that, obviously there's a change of opinions about this of adoption is you can do it without even that. Okay, now
just so we don't confuse the audience, this is just a historical opinion, or this is in the books of fiqh, and only in the Hanafi madhab.
Yes, so I'm not trying to tell anybody stop praying Salatul Jum'ah or anything here. By stating this is the importance I want to bring it up to the mind of the people, how important that aspect is as well, right? Okay, now, other part of that is when it comes to holding the Salatul Jum'ah at home, there's ikhtilaf about this issue as well. For example, Imam Abu Hanifa says you can have a Salatul Jum'ah with one imam and 3 people praying behind it. Now,
minimum 3 people, well,
it becomes 4, right, including Imam. So while Imam Muhammad, and Abu Yusuf, rahimahullah, they said actually that it can be done with one imam and two people who are praying behind them. So altogether three. Imam Shafi goes for 40 and on and on. But the thing is, none of them have actually a textual evidence that says that this is the number. What the text says, it has to be a jama'ah. This is why even it goes to the extent of some people even have an opinion of, you can have even one person praying behind the imam because it's a jama'ah.
So Jama is a group. So what constitutes a group? What by what definition is a group? Is it two people versus three people, etc.? I see. Okay.
Yeah. So you will find these kind of differences, and I'm not here to take a stick and put these opinions on the people's head that you have to follow this opinion or that opinion. We have to understand that Sharan, if there is a room for ikhtilaf of difference of opinion, we are okay with that. But at the same time, ikhtilaf does not mean that you can just come up with any opinion you feel like and say, oh, I have a difference of opinion, I'm going to stick with my opinion, right? So you have to know the boundaries of ikhtilaf because of the hadith of Rasulullah that discusses that it is you can have differences of opinion in certain actions. Like the hadith says, إِذَا حَكَمَ الْحَاكِمْ فَاجْتَهَدَ ثُمَّ أَصَابَ فَلَهُ أَجْرَانِ. That if there is ijtihad or the Islamic verdict has been made or a ruling has been made, extracted from the Quran and Sunnah, of course, and he is correct, then he will get 2 ajr. فَلَهُ أَجْرَانِ. فَإِذَا حَكَمَ فَاجْتَهَدَ ثُمَّ أَخْطَأ. And the one who has, when he has made this ijtihad or found the opinion from the Quran and Sunnah, and he made a mistake, فَلَهُ أَجْر. And he gets 1 reward for that. And this hadith is muttafaqun alayh. Muttafaqun alayh means this hadith is reported both by Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari, right? So that's about that part of it. But that does not make us think of it, you know what, I am just free and whatever my mind says, that's my opinion to go with. No, that opinion has to come from the Quran and Sunnah. The understanding can differ, and there are many, many different reasons for that. Or your understanding may be differing in understanding the reality as well. So that is within the boundaries of the Quran and Sunnah. You are still staying there. So that those opinions are okay as far as that. But at the same time, we should always remember when we are if we have this kind of a knowledge to make to come up with opinions. The ayah that Allah Azza wa Jal says in Surah Al-Isra, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. That pursue not that about which you have no knowledge. For surely your hearing, your sight, your heart, all of those will be called to account. So we should not be just making random things out of your mind and thinking of, oh, this is from Islam now. No, it has to be coming from the Nas, from the text of Quran.
So let me transition here a little bit. There's a few questions that I still have, but I wanted to get another point out of the way, is that, you know, there is a certain sense of spirituality that we all have in Ramadan, right? Everybody, their spirituality level kind of elevates just because it's Ramadan. You want to read more, you want to pray more, you want to do more ibadat, and that sort of spirituality is unique because it's Ramadan, right? Because the environment is there, the environment of Ramadan is there. How do I maintain that level of spirituality? How do I maintain that spirituality when that environment that we are used to in Ramadan is no longer present?
So it's a good question to look into from the angle of spirituality as well. That and if I just try to kind of make it more clear, because about what the spirituality is. Many times people have strange ideas about spirituality. So I think it's better to have some framework to understand, okay, this is what the spirituality is. Like, for example, I can give you some of the things, you may laugh at it, but that's the reality out there. We think of spirituality as, oh, because, okay, I am wearing this thobe, so I must be a very spiritual person.
Okay. Hey man, I'm wearing a t-shirt and I have like Arabic calligraphy and
stuff. Arabic calligraphy may make you a spiritual person, but I don't know. Okay, so
yeah. Okay.
But this is how people look. There are certain things that we have in our mind made up, right? Yeah. How big your lahya is, your beard is, and how high your the pants are.
Above the
That
ankle.
time think of it as this is your definition of spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Or even in the month of Ramadan, when we go for Salat Taraweeh, um, I get awed by looking at some of the Taraweeh I have been to, that you find that, okay, the moment the 8 rak'ah or 20 rak'ah, which depends on which masjid you're in,
Yeah.
done for Salat Taraweeh, now the Salat al-Witr is starting. Somebody will go in the back, he will start turning down the lights, because the dua has to be done in a spiritual environment. So dark light is there. Now you can really concentrate. This is a strange thing. Where is it coming from? Have no clue. Just thinking of it, this is going to bring the ruhaniyah or some sort of spirituality in you. Look, spirituality is neither the less light, neither is in the clothes. Rather, it is something which is something that takes you closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. It is connected to your actions, what you are undertaking. Remember, I just mentioned the hadith that says, "Inna Allah la yaqbalu min al-amal illa ma kana lahu khalisan wa yubtughiya bihi wa wajhu." That indeed Allah Subhanahu wa Taala does not accept any action, right, unless it is done solely for the pleasure of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. You mix up this action with anything, it is not accepted by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Okay, if it is mixed up to show off to the people who you are, how big of a scholar you are, or how much generous you are, how brave you are, you fight in the cause of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. These are three people mentioned in one of the hadith Qudsi, that they will be the first ones who will be dragged into the hellfire, the one who are doing for showing off. Yeah.
Right.
So spirituality is not connected to what apparently it looks to the people. Rather, it is a connection of yours with Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Yeah. So now this environment is actually I don't think it can be a better environment than this to take us closer to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. So let's not undermine this situation by just connecting it back to Salatul Taraweeh only, or going to the masjid that's going to bring me closer to Allah. Actually, this is a situation you have, like the death is in front of your eyes all the time, reminding you have to meet your Rabb. Watch out what you're doing. No matter what action you're doing, you have to watch out because you can die at any time. Even though, as a Muslim I mentioned, this should be very clear to us all the time. But sometimes this hadimul ladhat, that one of the hadith mentioned, that this is a destroyer, the moth is the destroyer of all the pleasures. Yeah. So this destroyer of the pleasure, this moth, this death, is something that really reminds back any human being the purpose of his existence. And that can even put him in a frame of mind of, okay, I have to make sure that since I can meet my Rabb at any time, that I want to meet him in the state that I am pleasing Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and nobody else. Okay. So this frame of mind we have to be in. So how does it come in? We have to know that it's not the issue of I have just made up things in my head that can please Allah. Rather, I have to know what Allah wants from me that can please Him. And every hukum of every action of a human being, it has to be connected to the hukum of Allah. This is a definition by the usulin, or the one who makes the not the make, I mean, to extract the rulings. The definition of hukum shari is this: that is a khitabu shari al-muta'alliq, that which is the address of the shari is Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, the legislator bi af'al al-ibad, that of the actions of his slaves, or the human beings. That's what hukum shari is. And for that means is every action that we are undertaking, we have to know what is the hukum of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. And that is the biggest connection we can make with Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, because we are always watchful of whatever we are doing. Yeah, whatever we are doing, I have to know what Allah Subhanahu wa Taala wants from me. And this situation has placed in a frame of mind that pushes us actually more to always look for what Allah wants.
Jazakallah khair. Let me pause here, and we're going to take some questions or comments from Facebook, and then we'll transition to our next subject. Abu Malik says the pandemic can happen even during an Islamic state as well, and Muslims can be affected. This COVID-19 started as a result of a man consuming a bat that carried the disease. So no matter what the disease was brought to the world through human doing, which is a result of human evilness. Do you agree? Um, he continues, he says, the disease came to us as a result of evil civilization is what I'm trying to get at. I think we kind of addressed this question earlier. We're not, just due to time, I'm not going to go over that question again. So, Brother Abu Malik, if you missed it, just go back to the live feed. You should be able to get your answer on that particular question. There's another question here, says, Osama Muhammad, what's the Zoom channel? There is no Zoom channel. You're already on Facebook. Just keep continuing to watch on Facebook. There's another question here from Fauzia Kazi. You said that the person that does anything for the reward and fame, their action does not count. Is it different from doing actions for the reward of going to Jannah? Yes. Okay. I mean, if you want to give a quick answer to this question.
It is. Yeah. When you talk about entering into Jannah, sometimes people try to get confused about this, that, oh, I'm doing it for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I'm not seeking Jannah. Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually orders us
correct,
to seek the Jannah.
Correct.
Yeah, so to seek the Jannah, as a matter of fact, you go run towards it, Jannah. The Jannah that Allah has created, which is the length of that is between what is in the heavens and the earth altogether. So now that's what there's a confusion. I think we have to be a little bit careful about here. Many people think of it, oh no, I do good deeds only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am not looking for Jannah.
No, but that's connected.
This is disconnected understanding. This is both connected together. Automatically is that we are seeking Jannah.
Yeah.
By the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Let me go through a few questions again here. Osama Ahmad, if though there is ikhtilaf, a difference of opinion, every Muslim still has to adopt an opinion. We can't leave it open or jump around from one opinion to the other. That is correct. This is a comment. Let me see here. Rihan Ahmad.
That clarification though, it is very important to understand. When I'm discussing the issues of the ikhtilaf or difference of opinion about certain thing, I am not saying to go and do the fatwa shopping or go by your desires or anything.
Okay.
Rather,
fatwa shopping, there you have it.
Rather, the one that you know this is the right thing in your heart, you feel that this is the right opinion, not the heart is the judge of halal and haram. The judge is you're extracting from Quran and Sunnah. Correct. But after that, now you are trying to figure out which one is the most correct one from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you stick with that, unless you find the reason that was a wrong opinion or there was some mistake in there.
Rehan Ahmed, can you explain on the condition for the Jummah has to publicly take place as an ijtima? So does the number count 4 or 40, or as that Jummah is not be able to conduct it become invalid, so we have to pray lunar, so we have to pray luhar? I'm not sure what this means. Can you explain on the condition for the Jummah has to be publicly taking place as an ijtima? So does that number count 4 or 40, or as that Jummah is not to be able to conduct it become invalid, so we have to pray luhar?
Dhuhr.
It's luhar. Oh, sorry. So zuhar. Yeah. I mean, it says Luhar.
That's okay. Probably a typo.
Okay, it's probably zuhar. Yeah.
Sure. And this is why I mentioned that. I will not go into the fiqh differences here. Rather, I just mentioned that, and I will leave it to the people that either if they have the understanding of judging the opinion that they think is the most sound opinion, and they stick with that, or they trust in somebody that they know that he will give him the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they take the hukum from that person, not that you are blindly following a person, rather you're following an opinion that is telling you that this is the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you trust his understandings.
All right. Let me pause here for a second, and there are a few other comments and questions that have come in, but I wanted to address this issue too, and it's going to be a controversial topic, and it always is. Every Ramadan we have this issue, the moon wars, right? I'm sure even in this pandemic, this is going to be an open discussion. We have it every Ramadan. We have it even during the time of Hajj. about the issue of the moon sighting. Now, just for the audience, I'm going to kind of condense it so that we get a we get a clear understanding on this. There are basically three opinions. One opinion says that calculations, where we have advanced in astronomical, in science, in astronomy. We know when the moon, the birth of the moon, and when the moon reaches half point, and all that stuff. So we know all the science really, really well. So we should calculate the beginning of Ramadan or the end of Ramadan or Eid. So opinion one is about calculations in terms of determining when the moon, when we can see the crescent, or when the crescent can be visible. The second opinion is of what we call local sighting. So wherever you live, you follow the local sighting, meaning that if you see the moon in the Chicagoland area, then you start fasting that time. Or if you see it around in the United States, continental United States, then you start fasting. And then the third opinion is the global sighting, where the moon is seen across any part of the world, regardless of whether it's United States or whether it's Middle East, whether it is India, Pakistan, China, etc. Wherever it is seen, Ramadan starts because a Muslim has testified that he or she has seen the moon. So this is called global sighting. Just for a disclaimer, so that we don't get into this question, this doesn't mean that you're following Saudi Arabia. Okay, I mean, because usually when people talk about global sighting, the number one argument that is brought about is that, oh, you just want to follow Saudi Arabia. That is not the case. So let's start off with this issue of calculation. Are we allowed to calculate, or are we allowed to utilize these astronomical charts to know when Ramadan is starting, when the moon takes birth, and so forth?
Okay.
You got to think about this.
This is not necessarily is a tough thing. Okay.
Yes.
It's more of there's so much confusion has been created around this subject, even though the subject is not confusing at all. Mm-hmm. It's a very simple it's a subject, and if we stay within the boundaries of Islam and follow the correct rulings of extracting the rules even, okay? Mm-hmm. I think you find it's a very simple subject, and it has to be dealt the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to deal with these opinions. Now, going back to the definition that I was trying to make about for every action, we have to have a hukum shari. And hukum shari is from khitabu shari. Khitabu shari means that the legislators address of the legislator, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's come in the form of the Quran and the Sunnah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, if we keep that in mind and we look at why the calculation part has been addressed this way, that now we have knowledge so we can move forward with just a calculation, right? And that has a misunderstanding of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that says, "Inna ummatun ummiyah, la naktubu wa la nahsubu ash-shahru hakadha wa hakadha." Yani, so he said like this: that we are an illiterate ummah, and we do not write, and we do not estimate for the month. Okay, mm-hmm. And then he started showing with his hands like this, that 3 times he opened, times he opened like this, and third time he opened like this. That 29 days, a month has 29 days, and then he said a month can have like this 3 times 30 days, right? Mm-hmm. So this is how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. Now, the people say, as you mentioned, that now the hadith says that we are illiterate nation, we neither write nor estimate, so that the month is like this and this. So since now we are literate, we have knowledge, we have gained knowledge about these certain things, that means now we know more illiterate ummah, so now we can calculate for the estimation of the months. Mm-hmm. The problem here is twofold. One is this idea of calculation is not an illah. Illah in fiqh means it's not the reason behind this hukum. Okay, it is not the reason behind the hukum, because if there's a reason given in the Quran and Sunnah regarding a hukum about a command, then if the reason does not exist, the hukum does not exist anymore either. So when you consider this as as an illah. But the thing is, the text around it does not indicate the illah here. It is not, because not only there's the other ahadith where he clearly says that it says ash-shahru 29 layla, that the month is 29 nights, فَلَا تَصُومُوا حَتَّى تَرَوْهُ, and do not fast until you see it. فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ فَأَكْمِلُوا عِدَّةَ ثَلَاثِينَ. See that? So here the term is used, and if it is cloudy, then you complete the 30 days. See, it's not talking about, the issue is you can calculate and you can say that there is a moon there. Okay, the birth of the moon has happened, but it's clouded, so you cannot see anymore. So the idea is, if you cannot see, even though the moon is there, we still are bound to follow the hukum, that is 30 days. And the seeing, sight, is the most important thing which is mentioned here. Right. The sighting has to be done, right?
So let me pause you here. I mean, you used a lot of fiqh terms here, just for the lay person. Just kind of, I wanted to break that down. I mean, illah, and I don't want to go into that discussion of what is an illah and how do you know what an illah is and stuff. But the point I just want to make it kind of a little bit simple is that, look, the hadith says you can calculate 29 or 30 days based on counting the days, but the beginning of the month of Ramadan, or when to end the month of Ramadan, is based on sighting the moon rather than astronomical calculations.
Right.
Am I right in this? Right. So the act of sighting is needed.
Yes.
To begin the month of Ramadan or end the month of Ramadan. But this does not mean that we cannot use these scientific charts and astronomical data that we get to know when the moon is going to appear. We can have that information, but we don't rely on it to start the fast or to start Eid, because what is needed is that you have to sight with your eyes the moon.
That is very true. And sorry if I missed that part. That is an important thing to understand, that the sighting is the key thing over here.
Okay.
Yeah? And as far as that part goes about calculation, look, when we are talking about even using our hands to count, this is counting as well, by the way. When we talk about zakah, how you deduct the money for the zakah, this is counting. A lot of counting is involved. And when it comes to inheritance laws, you get, if you look at the calculations, so much fractions are involved. This is all calculations over there as well.
Yes.
It's not that Islam say you cannot calculate. It's the issue of specifically about the beginning of the month and the end of the month. It is connected with the sighting.
Okay. Let me bring in a text here, just so that I want our audience to understand. This is a tafsir of from Tafsir al-Qurtubi, so one of the mufassirin, well-known mufassirin, and this is the tafsir of Surah Al-Baqarah, and this is where he talks about the month of Ramadan, and basically the ayah 185 of Surah Al-Baqarah, Shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran hudan lin-nasi wa bayyinatin min al-huda wal-furqan, that we began our episode with. So in this, he goes through this discussion here. I mean, it's a long discussion, and there's a lot of information in this particular text, in this particular chapter in the tafsir, and he quotes something here that is relevant for us to know, and that this is something coming from our classical text and not something that you or I are saying without evidence. He says that Ibn Nafi related from Malik that if a ruler does not fast by sighting the moon or breaking it by sighting it, and fasts and breaks it by calculation, you should not follow him or imitate him. So here, and then he goes to the other discussion about other parts of this discussion of Ramadan and so forth. But here you see Imam Qurtubi kind of mentioning this, because even at that time, we see that the fuqaha of our time, or historically, they were pretty familiar with calculations. They were able to determine the size, determining the cycles, the rotation of the moon, and then even measure the circumference of the earth and so forth. So they had the ability even at that time. So here, Imam Qurtubi says that this is not allowed in terms of using astronomical charts and so forth. I just wanted to bring that quote in. Let me transition now to the second part. So if we get this calculation stuff out now, the second part is now, okay, we have to
I think there's one part of the calculation should be clarified because many people get confused with that as well. They think of it as, okay, well, you're talking about the calculation of moon sighting. What about the salah? You have timetables across the masjid.
Oh, yes, yes.
Or you go to the phone and you click and you say, okay, this is the time for salah al-zuhr, this is the time for Asim or al-fajr or whatsoever.
Yes, yeah.
So what about that? You can calculate over there, and you're saying you cannot calculate here, right? So the part of that is when it comes to the salah, the hukum regarding the salah is about the movement of the sun, right? And it is not commanded us over there regarding the issue of that you cannot calculate there. The issue there is to know where the sun is at that time, so you can pray the salah at a certain specific time or not. So it's more of to know. Now, you can calculate that, where the sun is. Similarly, by the way, for the moon, it is allowed for us to calculate the birth of the moon, to figure out when it's going to birth, what location is going to be at, and then you start sighting at that specific time or the location, right? So that is allowed, but it is connected to the sighting. So here, it is not mentioned in the salah part that you have to. For example,
so salah is based on the
movement of the sun.
It's not about sighting the sun. It's about the position of the sun in your particular locality. Hence, it's determined when salah, when maghrib time is, when asr time is, etc. Because it is dependent on the position of the sun in your particular locality.
That's one aspect of it, and the hukum is like this. Like, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Aqimus salah liduluq ash-shams," that establishes salah when the sun is declines. So now, sun declines.
The hukum is connected with salah right away in the ayah.
Yes, and you look at it, you can measure it. It's allowed for us. Whether you go and measure it by whether your shadow is one size of the object or twice the size of the object for the zuhr or not, that kind of stuff. Or you can look at the watch, and you can whatever the calculation you have done, you know that this is where the location of the sun is at that point. That's all that matters for the salah. Not that you have to see with your naked eye, because even if it's cloudy and sun you cannot see, we still pray at the same time all the time. It's nothing new. Yeah.
Good. That's a good point. Yeah. So then the question becomes is, okay, we have to sight. Okay. Now, global sighting or local sighting? Local sighting, okay, Chicagoland area or the continental United States, or global sighting, which is you see the moon anywhere and somebody testifies that he or she has seen the moon, and we will start the Ramadan at that time, or we will end Ramadan and start our Eid. How do we tackle this?
So the text of the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is very clear regarding the issue of even if the sun is, the moon is not sighted in a locality, okay. And one of the hadith, actually, the text is very clear that says that it was narrated by Umar bin Anas bin Malik, and he says that my paternal uncle among the Ansar, who were among the companions of Rasulullah ﷺ, told me the new crescent of Shawwal was covered with clouds, meaning it was not sighted. So we fasted the next day. Okay, so they fasted the 30th day of Ramadan, thinking that this is not Shawwal, this is still Ramadan. Then some rider came at the end of the day, so meaning the time for Dhuhr has been passed. It's almost the end of the day. It's about time to break the fast. And testified to Rasulullah ﷺ that they had seen the new crescent the night before. So they already had seen the moon, and they were actually already celebrating the Eid. So Rasulullah ﷺ commanded them to break their fast and go out to offer the Eid prayer the following morning. Because the time for the Eid was past.
Yes. Yeah. Let me just clarify this, just so that the hadith. So this was at the time in Medina, Rasulullah, and it is time for Asr. A Sahaba is coming from Sham who had already seen the moon, and for him it is Eid. Correct? Am I okay? So Rasulullah tells the Sahaba at that time to break your fast, and this is at the time of Asr.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the thing is, it is not allowed for us to fast on the day of the Eid.
Yes.
Okay? So Rasulullah did not say, okay, well, this is not from a different area and we did not see it, so we should continue. As a matter of fact, we're almost done anyways. No, it doesn't work that way, right? Even that the time for the Eid
was coming from
Yeah.
So completely different area.
Yes. And
Okay.
another hadith talks about
Yeah.
similar way. Rasulullah only asked if he was a Muslim or not, and he did the shahada, and that was sufficient for Rasulullah to accept his shahada and continue on with the new moon. Now here, another important thing to understand is Rasulullah, because this is another question that comes in. What about if you have already passed the day, the time? What do you do at that time now, right? So this is already given here. What do? You can pray in this situation the following day because you got the news late. Okay, but you break a fast in that situation, even though you got the information.
Because it's the day of Eid, and then the sighting was done.
Yes.
And it was done at a different locality, not your local. So
yes.
So Rasulullah is saying he's following a global sighting in
Correct.
that sense.
And that's an important thing to understand, right? That you are even though it's coming from a different locality, it was not cloudy over there. And Rasulullah accepted that witness and followed the very same action. Now, so that is these are the hadith like this were used by the fuqaha. And when I'm saying hadith, this hadith is from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is his action we are talking about. Okay. So while the other hadith, which is,
where is this hadith mentioned, by the way?
This hadith is mentioned in Ibn Majah, and also similar wordings are mentioned by Imam Ahmad also.
Imam Ahmad, okay.
Okay. So now, similarly, there's another hadith which is mentioned by Ibn Abbas, and that hadith actually talks about, which is the hadith of the Qurayb, that talks about when somebody came from, this is the one coming from Muawiyah's land, right? From Sham.
Right. Yeah, from Sham.
Now, in that case, by the way, other one, I don't remember it was Sham or not, because you mentioned Sham. Hadith does not mention Sham in this one. Maybe some other hadith says Sham. For this one, Ibn Abbas is one. And over there, they said they have already sighted the moon, and Ibn Abbas said that he will follow what he was commanded by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we will have our own moon sighting. So now, based on that, the other group which follows that, there could be meaning there could be different regions or localities, and they can have their own sighting. Now, the difference between these two is this: number one, you cannot have a hadith which is understanding of a Sahabi. Understanding of a Sahabi is not considered as a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is more of an ijtihad of a Sahabi.
It's an opinion of the Sahabi.
It's an opinion of a Sahabi.
Okay.
It is different than you have a text from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam doing an action. Whether it's his saying, whether it's words, or whether he saw an action and he stayed silent. Right? So that's a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that has a precedence when we talk about extracting the rules. You cannot, if somebody is following the understanding of Abbas, Ibn Abbas, is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying if he believes, again, this is the issue of difference of opinion, how you take the difference of opinion. This is an understanding of Ibn Abbas. Now, of course, a sound understanding is that there's only one region, the whole globe is one. And there are, by the way, if you look at Hanafi, especially their work, books like Dur al-Mukhtar, books like Fatawa Alamgiri, Fatawa Darul Ulum, Fatawa Rahimiyya, all of them discusses this issue as that no matter where the moon is sighted, that should be accepted by the whole world, everybody in every region, as long as they have the witnesses and they have the proof that it is cited. That's all that matters.
Let me share this, because you brought up Fatawa Darul Ulum, and you've studied under the scholars from Darul Ulum. This is a book, Fatawa Darul Ulum, Volume 6. Just bear with me, my Urdu is not that great here, at least my ability to read. Because you mentioned that if you look at the Hanafi fiqh, the Fatawa Darul Hanafi fiqh books, Fatawa Darul Ulum or Fatawa Alamgiri and so forth, they speak about a global sighting. So there is a question here in this particular passage in this book. It's Fatawa Darul Ulum, Deoband. This is volume 6 on page 246. It says, let me see, where is it? This is a question. Sawal.
So if you look at my picture on the right side, bottom right, you see that book actually.
Oh, behind you, you're okay, mashallah. All right, so you've got the whole volume there.
Right.
So it says Amritsar
Yes.
वगैर में बा
बाबत
बाबत
रुयत हिलाल
रुयत हिलाल रमजान के और
रमजान
वईद.
व ईद उल फितर.
All right, man. Why don't you just read it? Like, by the time I get to it, it's gonna be there.
That's okay. अमृतसर वगैरह गैर ही में बाबत रुयत हिलाल रमजान व ईद उल फितर वगैरह ही के इख्तिलाफ रहा है. तो हम साकिनान मंडला सीपी को दूसरे शहर वालों की जिनका हद फासिल दूर दराज है मुताबियत करके अमल करना चाहिए या नहीं. So उनका the answer is okay. Let me just translate, I guess. So the question is about Amritsar. This is one of the cities, and the other cities.
Amritsar, it's in India. It's in Punjab on the north side.
Punjab.
Correct. Yeah.
And the question is about the Ruyat Halal, meaning the sighting of the moon for the Ramadan and for the Eid al-Fitr and others. There's a difference. They always have a difference. And the people who live in Mandla CP, okay, I have to move this. I cannot see it. Okay. And the others, people of the other cities who are very far away from there, should they follow their sighting or not, basically? Mm-hmm. And the answer is, عند الحنفية اختلاف مطالع كاعتبار नहीं है, meaning that according to the Hanafi school of thought, they do not accept, it's not valid to think of different regions or localities. अहले मशरिक की रुयत हिलाल मगरिब के लिए लाजिम हो जाती है. The people who have seen the moon or the crescent in the east, the people who are in the west, it is obligatory on them to follow that. Baraks and the opposite of that, meaning if the west sees it, then east has to follow. Okay, अगर बतरीक़ मोतबर साबित हो जावे, but there has to be actually proven by معتبر means so Arabic the same word, but I cannot translate now. معتبر ثابت meaning that is acceptable. It is proven with authenticity that it is correct. Okay. كذا في شامي وفي الدور المختار, and he's saying in the Shami and دور المختار واختلاف المطالع, and then continues on telling that these books also say about اختلاف المطالع وغيره معتبر على الظاهر المذهب, that it is not accepted by the madhab. فيلزم أهل المشرق برؤية أهل المغرب إذا ثبت, that if it is obligatory on the people of the east to follow the people of the west if it is proven that it has been cited in the it is cited. Yeah.
So then the question becomes is that if the books in the Hanafi fiqh and the classical scholars have essentially, for the majority of them, have basically said that it is global sighting, regardless of where you live, you have to accept the testimony of a Muslim, and then the month starts. Then where does this local sighting and this difference come about? I mean, obviously, we've seen, especially in the Chicagoland, many people follow the Chicago Hilal Committee and all of that stuff. I'm not disparaging any of the groups there, but what I'm saying is where does this idea, if it's not in the classical text and most of them are agreeing on global sighting, where did this idea come from, of that we have to restrict ourselves to a certain locality?
So look, so I'm not in a position of just talking about where are they getting the opinions specifically. Mm-hmm. I'd rather discuss from the perspective of okay, what are the opinions, where the opinions coming from, and the person who, if he is taking an opinion and following it, he has to justify his own actions actually, right? Mm-hmm. His opinions that he's coming up with. Now, what I see is the problematic thing is, as I mentioned, so calculation is, first of all, is out of the
picture. Yeah, I mean, there's no evidence on this.
So there's no argument about that. Whatever you want to call it, benefit of this or that, you cannot follow that. Now, about the different localities or one locality, there is a room for a difference of opinion, as I said. But when we talk about different localities actually, if you really think about it, it cannot even happen. Two reasons. One is, for example, how are you going to define different localities? For example, can I say India and Pakistan, two countries, right? Can I say these are two different localities? Not really. India and Pakistan actually, they have part of Punjab, they even share, okay? like Amritsar, which was mentioned
Right,
over there.
Amritsar mentions
So that's in
Punjab.
Punjab,
It's
Lahore is in the Punjab
correct.
of Pakistan, for
Just
example.
for our audience, Punjab, it's
Another
there's a part of
province.
Punjab. It's a province. It's part of it is in India, part of it is in Pakistan
Correct.
because of the borders and division 47,
Yeah.
1947. Okay.
So it's a funny thing that the
Yes.
way we look at this اختلاف المطالع even, that we call it like this. Oh, before 1947, Indian subcontinent was one country, so it was one moon. And then after 1947, it became two moons. Suddenly the moon divided into two. One became Pakistan, one became India, and the Pakistan was east and west. After 1971, those two moons turned into three moons. One is Bangladesh has its own moon, Pakistan has its own moon, India has its own moon. So it's not really the way people are looking at ikhtilaf al-matala is from the perspective of a region where a moon can be sighted, whether it's part of the same region or not. Rather, they're looking by political boundaries that have been drawn among the Muslim Ummah now today. And now we fight about, oh, this is my moon and this is your moon, and I'm not going to follow your sighting and my sighting. It is so sad. I can tell you in Pakistan, for example, right? So Pakistan is, if you look at the map, it's kind of an elongated kind of a map, right? Long. So if you go from north to south, it's almost about 1,000 miles in between. Okay. So now the one which is on the northern side, which is called now, the province name is called Pakhtunkhwa, which is bordering Afghanistan. Now, what they try to teach you is this: well, if the moon is sighted in Peshawar, let's say, very north of Pakistan, then their moon is sufficient for Karachi, which could be about 1,000 miles away from it. Okay, but that's not sufficient to 2 miles about away from Peshawar, which is Afghanistan. So we will not accept that. And similarly, the Karachi one should be accepted by the one in Peshawar, but not by somebody who's bordering, which is India in some cases. Not Karachi is not bordered India, but close to India. So these are
basically,
than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's because of political issues, because of political boundaries, nationalistic boundaries. The Ummah not being united under one authority, you will continue to kind of essentially have these issues because you're accepting a certain political framework by which you're actually limiting the fiqh, the hukum shari, the rulings. So I think we're kind of. I think we've hit this topic well. I want to just kind of a little bit transition. I'm sure a lot of people will still have questions, and you guys can ask questions on the comments. But I wanted to transition into another topic here. I mean, that this idea of a global connection, right? Because this relates to the whole Ramadan sighting as a global sighting opinion. What do I have to look forward to? What do I have to think about Ramadan around the world? We see a lot of these beautiful pictures that come out from different parts of the world of people celebrating their Ramadan and enjoying their Eid al-Fitr and so forth. What's my perspective on this? As part of an ummah that is going through so much every single day.
Okay, before I jump into this, answering this question, which is a pretty broad question, I'll try to restrict myself as much as possible. I actually just need a power cord on my laptop is about to die. Can you pass me the power supply, please? I did not realize it's almost an hour and a half already.
Yeah,
time flies.
Just for the audience that's still watching, we're gonna come to some practical examples that Ustadh Asim is going to share with us about what to do this Ramadan. So that part is still remaining. So still hang on. I know we've kind of gone over time quite a bit.
You turn it on. Yeah.
Oh, you plugged it in. It's not on.
Yes. Okay. Now about the global connection. Look. This is an aspect I think whether it's Ramadan or not Ramadan, whether it's coronavirus or not coronavirus, we are one ummah. That part cannot be taken away from us. As Allah Azza wa Jal says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الْإِخْوَةُ فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. Now Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says here that believers are but brothers. So make settlement between your brothers and fear Allah that you may receive mercy from Allah Azza wa Jal. Fear Allah. Here again, the same term is used. وَاتَّقُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. That here, like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Ramadan also, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. There also Allah is reminding us so we can get the righteousness, we can get the taqwa from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also the hadith of Rasulullah is very clear that refers to as the mu'mineen, the believers, كَرَجُلِ وَاحِدٍ, that they are like one man. That if one part of the body hurts or his head aches, the whole body aches with fever and sleeplessness. Yeah, this is hadith reported by Sahih Muslim. And these are things we are all very well aware of. And inshallah, when we connect this back to Ramadan, Ramadan is something which is actually, inshallah, this becomes always a source for us to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal every year. This is more of a getting closer and closer every year, and inshallah, that reminds us also of our, we remember that who we are and what is our job as an ummah as well, right? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designated us the best ummah, also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned us as the ummah that gives the justice to the whole mankind. See, our job is not just limited to ummah only. Our job is we are supposed to be the one who are leading the mankind. Okay, the leading the mankind with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. That we have made you the best ummah. Ummah wasata means the best ummah, the one who provides the justice, and that you are witnesses over mankind. We are witnesses on the mankind. So our job is not limited just to think of the believers. Yes, we are one body, we are one ummah, and we feel the pain of each other. At the same time, we are assigned a bigger job. And this month of Ramadan, when we say it's a shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran, this is a month of the Quran as well. Yeah. So let's remember that this month of Ramadan, which is a month of Ramadan, which is a month of Quran, what was the purpose of this book? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Ibrahim that Alif Lam Ra Kitabun anzalnahu ilayka litukhrij an-nas min adh-dhulumat ila an-nur bi'idhni rabbihim ila siratil aziz al-hamid. That there is the purpose of the Quran as mentioned here. That we have revealed this book for you for what? So you can take the mankind out of the darkness into the light of Islam. Darknesses are many, light is one, which is Islam. Nur is only one. So that's our purpose. Now, when the Muslim Ummah looked at Islam like this, as the ones who are leading the mankind, the one who feel the pain of each other, who are there for each other all the time, look what this month of Ramadan gave to the Ummah. The Battle of Badr, the Ghazwat al-Badr, which is also called Yawm al-Furqan. See the term we use for Furqan for Quran, similarly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used for Badr also. That this was the day was when the haqq and batil was, this day made a clear distinction between haqq and batil, or the truth and the falsehood. This happened in Ramadan. Fatah Makkah, the Makkah was opened in the month of Ramadan. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah was reciting this ayah when he was breaking down those false idols, جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. Yeah, that the truth has come and the falsehood has passed away. Really, falsehood is sure to pass away. The opening of Undulus or Spain, when this also happened in Ramadan. Same way, the Ramadan, the Jalut happened in Ramadan as well. When Saifuddin Qutuz, he fought against the Mongols, right? So Muslims looked at, first of all, that month of Ramadan was a month of victories for the Muslims always, and we should always remember that. And Muslim as an ummah, yeah. So we were taking care of each other this way, that it became a month of victory rather than to think of it as a month that just comes and passes by, and we're just thinking of only spirituality for just me, myself. We have never been me and myself. We were always connected together. And that's what we have to always look at.
That's a very good point. There are a few comments and questions. I'm going to actually table that just because we're running out of time here. But I want to get your final words on a few things, and then maybe if we have some time, we can address some of these comments or the questions. What are the practical steps? What are the things that I need to do as a family, as myself, this Ramadan, so that I make sure that inshallah we enter Ramadan the best way we can, and we leave it in the best manner we can.
Look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us see the month of Ramadan, witness it, and become one of the means for us to, inshallah, have our sins forgiven. And not only that, this current situation has put the families isolated with each other. They have no other way but to be in their faces all the time. So in a good
way, yeah.
So it's the best time for us to really have the bonding with each other. Yeah, we really probably we learn about each other more in this situation than we probably have ever learned about each other. Yeah, and our mistakes, our shortcomings, as well as our strengths also at this point, we really see that. So now you make use of this time, right? Make use of this time. So do things like this. For example, memorization of the Quran should always be one of the things that we have in our minds. Create a connection with the Quran. Let's not forget this. This is a Shahr Ramadan again. This month of Ramadan is the one where Allah is always Shahr al-Quran as well. Allah revealed this Quran in this month. So let's connect to this message, understand the message, set some goals in this month that, okay, what we have to do. And as we always talk about, is it the aqab, is it a punishment from Allah or not? Okay, well, fine. Find out what are the things that can turn this test into a punishment. Let's to make sure that we are avoiding that. Make sure we are doing the enjoining the good, forbidding the evil part. Yes, the recitation of the Quran has a lot of hasanat. Yeah, the hadith of Rasulullah that talks about that alif lam mim, that you get 10 hasanat for that. The alif is different harf and the mim is lam is different, mim is different. For each one you get 10, so 30 hasanat. I don't want to go into this, but I just read this fact in Kitab al-Itqan by Suyuti. He even goes into this detail of, when you recite the Quran, how many hasanat you get, and it comes out like 10 million something.
So he calculated that.
He calculated 10,270,000 hasanat. So let's not go into these numbers and all that.
Correct. Yes,
the purpose of the Quran was not that, right? The purpose of the Quran was to a point that, as we just talked about, to take the people out of darkness and into the light of Islam. And also, remember when we're reading the Quran, that how the Quran should impact us. See, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. That had we sent down the Quran on mountain, you would have surely have seen it humbling itself and rendering asunder by the fear of Allah. That's the way we should be reading the Quran. Read this as, okay, I am reading the book, the kalam of Allah, the creator of the heavens and the earth. There is no more communication from him. That's the last communication. Put yourself in that frame of mind when you're reading this. You'll be in a different frame of mind when you read this way, right? So just as a reminder, number one thing, there are like I don't know, I have like 6-7 R's to remember, inshallah, for ourselves, that may help. So what should we do now? My suggestion is read or recite the Quran, revisit the Quran. This is number one, first R. Second, refocus or reflect on the Quran on our lives according to the Quran. Okay, recharge yourself with the Quran to become a better Muslim. After this Ramadan, make sure that we are coming out as better Muslim than before. Recharge yourself. Return and remember Allah Azza wa Jal, the fourth R. And the fifth R is be ready to meet Allah Azza wa Jal. If you remember some R's for the Ramadan, inshallah, that would help us to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So read, refocus, or reflect, recharge, return and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be ready to meet him.
Yes.
Wow, this is very nice. That makes it easy.
Inshallah.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Go ahead.
Last part.
Yes.
And when we are doing all these things, remember this hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, when Rasulullah sallam was asked, سُئِلَ أَيُّ الْأَعْمَالِ أَحَبَّ إِلَى اللَّهِ, which action is loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Rasulullah sallam said, أَدْوَمَهُ وَإِنْ قَلْبِ, the action which is done continuously, even if it is small. So set the goals which are achievable for you. You know better about yourself than anybody else. but do it on a consistent basis, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khairan. Let me, I think I'm going to take maybe one more question, and then we can end on that. Let's see here. This is from Fawad Saeed. How do we compensate for the lack of change in lifestyle during this Ramadan? This is a good question. In previous years, the whole lifestyle changed during Ramadan, forcing us to rethink our priorities and change in our behavior. A follow-up question: how does the quick and drastic change in lifestyle caused by COVID-19 pandemic open the door for a global change towards Islam? It's forcing Muslims and non-Muslims to rethink their priorities, what they thought was strong and powerful, and change their behavior overall. I think we'll just address the first part of the question, is that, okay, we inshallah, we want to, we'll always have a problem. Even, we're not robots. We can decline in the actions that we're doing, and we can go back to a different or same lifestyle. So the main question he's asking is, how do we compensate for the lack of change in lifestyle during this Ramadan? So what if we don't even change? And I think that's a point to address. Ustadh, if you have any comments on this.
So the question is, if we don't change in this Ramadan,
how do we compensate for the lack of change in lifestyle during this Ramadan? So what if we don't really change?
Look, I don't know how it's possible that not to change. Right? If you're talking about the current situation, if we don't change now, right?
Yeah.
I'm hoping this is the question here. So, as I say, the situation we are in, it's almost impossible for us to come out not to be different. There will be a change.
There has to be. You don't have a choice. You have to.
There is no way. Even look, getting on the train will be different for you. To think about, what am I doing now? How long is it going to take for the people to even get used to for the normal things they used to do? That's another whole aspect. Inshallah, I think I would say more knowledgeable people in that field directly of how it's impacting psychologically to the people should be addressed. And I think you have done a program on this a couple of weeks ago. And they were probably more talking about now. I think there should be a talk rather more about how about the future, how the things are going to change. And I think as a Muslim, we should always, we can never be complacent. As a matter of fact, the time we think that now I am good to go, that's actually the downfall. Yeah. So we should always be looking for change, and not a change only, a change in the upward direction always. Always looking for betterment, for the ihsan. Yeah, for getting better and better all the time.
Jazakallah khair. I think at this point we'll end our meeting today. Just for our audience who have joined in, who are watching and asked questions and commented, Jazakumullah khairan for doing so. These questions and comments do help engage in the discussion, help in the engagement of the discussion. I appreciate everybody who has been watching the series of conversations that we're calling Convo with Experts. So far, alhamdulillah, we've done 4 series of conversations on different topics related to our times. Inshallah, maybe we may have 1 or 2 more episodes left, and after that, I think we will kind of end the series of conversations because it was meant to bring certain topics for us that are relevant to our times. And inshallah, in Ramadan, as Ramadan comes along, we may have something else. But for now, I think I may have 1 or 2 more episodes, and that we will end with that. But barakallah feekum, Ustadh Asim Kazi, jazakumullah khairan for coming and the efforts that you put in. Jazakallah khair for your advice. I would appreciate if you could end this with a dua for us.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen Rahman ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this Ramadan is the month of Ramadan for a month of victory for the Muslim Ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite the Ummah under one flag. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this month of Ramadan for us as individuals as well as the one that bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us to make a better connection with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this book as a hujjah on the day of judgment in our favor and not against us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let us achieve the title that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has assigned to this ummah of the best ummah, and make us as individuals as the best ones. As the hadith of Rasulullah talks about, is that the one who learns the Quran and teaches the Quran is the best among the ummah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the not only the best ummah but the best within the ummah. Jazakumullah khairan. If I said something good, it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if I made any mistakes, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. And if you see of any error, please do let me know, and inshallah I'll try to rectify it.
Jazakumullah khairan. Barakallah feek. Jazakumullah khairan for everyone from the audience. Inshallah, this has been a Convo with Experts. This is your brother Abdul Rafi. We'll be signing off until next time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.